Come with me as we explore the Battle of Sheriffmuir, 13th of November 1715, the only major action in the Second Jacobite Uprising. A strange action by British military history standards in that both sides claim victory. The British army, led by the Duke of Argyll, with about 3,500 men. Meanwhile, the Earl of Mar had about 9,000 Jacobite Highlanders. As we walk the ground, we'll gain a better understanding of the geography and how both sides claimed victory after this dramatic battlefield on a moorland above Dunblane.
So if we take one of the original positions of the dispositions of the two armies, then this becomes the British government lines under Argyll, just back of the gathering stones, which is through those woods, and would make this roughly the line. And obviously there's been a lot of forestation and deforestation over the years. It would be much more likely to be this kind of gorse and heather that we see elsewhere. And it's impossible to see that much from here, but bear with us because we're going to go and see where we definitely know the centre of the fighting is, depending on whichever angle it is at the gathering stone. So why is there a large broken stone protected by iron grills in the middle of the battlefield? Well, it predates the Battle of Sheriffmuir by several thousand years, probably about 2500 BC. It was known as the Witch's Stone or the Beltane Stone because of superstitions held locally. But what we do know is that it's contemporary on maps with the battle. But in the 1800s, whilst both Scottish and English navies were building a nearby railway, with friendly, air inverted commas, rivalry, the English navies came up at night and broke up this stone. So the local laird put this grill over it to protect it. So the gathering stone, as it's got its name because of the battle, predates by several thousand years. But it's a useful landmark in this area because before forestry, this was a very open moorland, really open ground. Which means that this was the government right of flank. And over here you had Stairs, Evans and Portmore's, better known as Scots Greys Dragoons, mounted. And it gives a slightly better impression today without the trees. This was an area that's very difficult underfoot. There's lots of spongy moss and heather and gorse, but they could cover this area. And those three regiments would have faced Jacobite mounted cavalry, but they would have been more gentlemen volunteers on their horses and yeoman farmers rather than trained dragoons. And they would have come thundering in from that area, and they then could have ridden down the Jacobites who were facing us in this direction. And they succeeded in smashing into their lines and forcing back the Jacobite left, which is the British government right, in this area with some real ferocity. But meanwhile, on the other side, all was not well. But all was not well down here on the British government left, Argyll's left flank. His army here was at a shorter disposition, and the Jacobites managed to stretch their lines out far, probably into those trees. And as they did so, they advanced. The government forces opened fire, cutting down one of the Jacobite clan leaders. And a cry went up basically of no mercy, but it was the no, revenge today, mourning tomorrow. And it was just the clans that had survived the Glencoe massacre. And you think that the commander here, Argyll, was a Campbell, and it was the Campbells that had instigated the Glencoe massacre. And this was not forgotten. And they streamed forwards. Again, it's really broken ground. You can see here, well, the Highlanders wouldn't have found it easy, but at least they're familiar to some of it. And they would have streamed forwards over this ground, charged in and smashed into the government lines, who actually crumbled and fell back. But as we're down low, Campbell had no idea that his left flank was in retreat and that his commander here was actually going to be routing all the way down to Dunblane over the horizon through those now trees, and he was bringing word of defeat. European blueberries, or blaeberries in Scots, are these small fruits that are just forming. And as well as that, you've got the heather, famous Scottish heather, and the long grass of the marshes. And that gives you an idea of just how difficult it is on a moor like Sheriffmuir up here. And it's got a lot of life to it, lots of flowers, but it's very, very difficult going. Whether you're in barefooted like lots of the Highlanders, or the soldiers would have been in shoes, not boots, and easily would have lost them anywhere that was too wet. Remember, this battle's being fought heading into winter, and it could have well have been much, much wetter than it is today. As a historic side point, at Sheriffmuir, you've got these strength stones or lifting stones, depending, and to give you a size of them, two different ones, and they're a traditional way without weapons of people to test their strength, traditionally masculine, but today, hey, male or female, give them a go. If you're stronger than me, I'll just put my back out. But you've got these traditional lifting stones. There's at least 2 sets on Sheriffmuir of different weights, and you can come lift them and see if you're as strong as a Highland warrior. There really is nothing quite like hiking these old routes and telling these stories, and I love the fact that I can do it so close to home alongside my full-time job / career. So thank you for anyone who watches these, and it really encourages me to get out and not only show you the battlefields but the beautiful scenery and share it with you. So if you enjoy it, I know it's very shameless, but I have to say, please give it a like, subscribe, recommend it, share it, all of those things, because I do it because I love it. I want to tell these stories, the people who fought, who fell, who sacrificed, and bring a bit of history to life. So if you could, that'd be really appreciated, and it encourages me to get out more with my dog Rusty, who's very popular in his own rights because he's the good looking one, and we'll tell these stories from Britain, and I've got more plans for the Napoleonic period as well. So thank you for all your support. So Argyll then had the difficult decision of what to do with his force that had remained, and he found an enclosure. The wall was largely made of mud, but this is a good facsimile, and put his troops behind it, his artillery in front of it, and his dragoons out, and therefore they were able to fend off the last stages of the attack. Mar did not press home the attack, and they were coming in, I would assume, from that direction that we've just come down, and he's able to defend this area and then withdraw in the evening towards Dunblane. So even though Mar had won the battle, he'd not won a complete victory, and allowed Argyll to slip away with some of his army intact, while some of Mar's army, the Jacobites, fled north, their retreat being covered by Rob Roy McGregor, no other than that Highland outlaw, rather romanticised by Liam Neeson films. But he really was a bit of a bandit, but they'd begged for him to come, and they did so later at Glen Shiel, but that's another story. However, he did probably cover the Jacobite retreat and rout, and some of the men ran for their lives, being beset by British dragoons. So Argyll had some of his army left, and therefore it was not a complete victory or a complete defeat for either side, and both had counter claims thusly. Which makes this the British government right near where the dragoons would have charged through, now marked by the Clanmacrae Memorial. Sorry, just out of sight, 2 vehicles, not mine. And they would have charged along this direction near the road. That meant that actually they had real success, and they pushed back the Jacobite left and forward with the British government right in this area, and had real victory. And this is where Argyll focused himself and was drawn down towards, therefore not realising that his left had been turned, and this became a battle of 2 halves, with his left hand side split off and his right hand side victorious, and the Jacobites on the opposite. There was now a battle of 2 halves forming, with the Jacobite streaming away from its position, running away towards the north, and actually having to call in reinforcements, which was under Rob Roy McGregor, from this direction to the south to cover their retreat. Meanwhile, as they pushed forwards, they were cut off from their troops, the government troops that were streaming back away towards Dunblane in rout. and the news of their defeat had gone. So it became a battle of two halves, but all was not lost and all was not won yet. As well as the impressive Clanmacrae memorial, there's this one put up by the 1745, a much smaller memorial, and it reads, "On this moor, on the 13th of November 1715, a Jacobite army composed largely of Highlanders under the command of the Earl of Mar met a Hanoverian army consisting mainly of British regular soldiers." I'll suffix that with lots of those were Scottish, under the Duke of Argyll, at what has become known as the Battle of Sheriffmuir. The result was indecisive, but Mar's failure to take advantage of Argyll's weakened position in the closing stage of the conflict, and subsequent withdrawal from the field, contributed to the failure of the risings known as the 15, in favour of the restoration of the exiles King James VIII, the Old Chevalier. That's the Old Pretender. And there's a very small memorial here on this lay-by, but it does give a slight impression that it's still remembered, even if the wording is very interesting, maybe biased, but Sheriffmuir, and this was the alternative opening position for the British government lines, but if not, then it becomes the fallback position for Argylls and using enclosures in this area. So still really nice to come to. And if you want to join me on Jacobite battlefields, then follow the link in the description, and in May I'll be going, along with a good friend, and hopefully yourselves, to the Scottish battles, all four major Jacobite uprising into beautiful parts of Scotland where the battles took place. 3 really exciting days, getting amongst the history and seeing some amazing scenery as well. So hopefully come and join us for that.